The Pearl was the scene of some outstanding monumental rows, literary and otherwise. I once saw Brendan Behan belt Patrick Kavanagh before he was hustled downstairs and away, and Brendan joined the ranks of the band, though there were few enough of them in the Pearl. The telephone number of the Pearl Bar was engraved on the minds of telephone switchboard operators in Manchester, London, Liverpool, many of whom must have thought it was the branch office of some great newspaper. Reporters always got messages from George or Christy or Seamus, though often concealed in the classic Dublin bar parlance. Mr. O, if you see Mr. K, tell him Mr. A rang from the office to say he'll find R at you-know-where. Basically, it was an Irish Times pub because of the proximity of that office, and it had been since 1940 when Gus Weldon took over Moore and Salmons' old pub and rechristened it the Pearl. Now the Pearl is to be bulldozed into the ground to make way for a bank. Maeve, we've been told what a newspaper man's pub is and what it should be, but what should a newspaper woman's pub be?
Well, I've only been in the Irish Times for 4 years, but I suppose I've been here twice a day, and I'd hate to think it was for drink all the time. It's a sociable place. It's a place you can be sure of meeting all your friends, and in fact of hopefully meeting new ones as well, particularly the English journalists, and other people come over to visit, because they always seem to regard the Irish Times, quite rightly, maybe said, as the source of all information on every possible topic.
Looking around the walls at the various cartoons here, there isn't a single woman journalist. What do you feel about that?
Well, I'd love to say that it was a male chauvinist plot, but unfortunately it isn't. Mr. Weldon about a year ago asked Mary Marr and myself to get pictures of ourselves, photographs of ourselves, and give them to Bobby Pike, and he was to draw them from the photographs. But unfortunately, between the vanity of the two of us, we spent so long trying to find a flattering picture of ourselves that the pub closed before the pictures were drawn.
When the Pearl finally closes down, where will you find the source of comfort and contact with other newspaper men?
Well, I suppose it might be no harm for a week or two if we all went back to work.
Lionel Fleming, you've been a newspaper man all over the world. It always seems that there is one journalist pub or one journalist hotel. Would you agree that the Pearl Bar has been that pub in Dublin?
Oh, very much so, yes. You're quite right. There are certain pubs that are known, by foreign correspondents and that kind of thing, as the place where you will find other journalists, where you find politicians, find everyone. The Pearl certainly has been one of those.
Why do you think that is? What gives a pub this aura, or usefulness for that matter?
I have a feeling that, in fact, it sounds vain, but I think it's created by journalists. That journalists will decide, or one or two of them will decide to go to a certain pub. Other journalists, when they come to that place, will go there too in the hope of seeing other journalists.
Martin, as a journalist, how did you find the Pearl Bar useful?
Well, I think, first of all, one must confess that I was not without knowledge of the Pearl Bar, even before the Irish Times phase, if you know what I mean.
Long before you worked in the
Well,
pub?
not all that long. But later, of course, when it became the chapel of ease of the Irish Times, the friendship was kind of cemented, you see. But at the time, if you were talking about the Irish Times period, it was the place to which people repaired at cut-line, 10 minutes to 10, for the necessary refreshment which sustained them for the rest of the evening's work.
Gus, everybody's been very complimentary about you yourself tonight, anybody we've spoken to, but what do you think made this a newspaper man's pub?
Well, I'd say when Mr. Smiley moved from the palace to here, I'd say that all his associates came with him, and he held court then here for many years.
Gus, were they difficult customers, newspapermen?
Oh, not at all, no. It was a pleasure to deal with them always. Pleasure.
You must feel a certain sense of sadness that the place is closing down now.
Well, yes, I'd say. But business is not quite as nice now as it was in those days, you know.
Things are changing all over.
Yes. Yeah.
What about your own future, Gus? What will you do now?
Well, I'll put the feet up for a while, I think, and survey the situation, and perhaps maybe might go back into it sometime.
Many of those whose portraits line the walls of the Pearl Bar are now dead. The old customers must find a new pub. But it's not easy to create an institution. And that's what the Pearl was.